UCLA has continued to emphasize building in the trenches, and that's what DeShaun Foster has done with two more commits, this time on the defensive line.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever it's your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. And hey, welcome back, everydayers. Yeah, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Where we get started today, we are talking all sorts of recruiting in UCLA football and UCLA basketball/softball. We'll talk about that later. Starting off with the gridiron, you've got DeShaun Foster, who continues to put together quite a haul this offseason for the class of 26. All right. A lot of building hype for this upcoming season in 2025 with Nico Iamaleava and all the spring portal transfer additions, all the new coaching transitions. And now what UCLA has been able to do is build some momentum into this upcoming offseason after the football season in the winter, right? Will UCLA be built upon what they've done in high school? Will they get a lot of last-minute flips? Will they get a lot of last-minute transfers coming in from the 2026 campaign? We'll find out. That's going to be up to DeShaun Foster and company with what they do this year with Nico Iamaleava at the helm as QB1 and hopefully a lot of energy in the Rose Bowl. The offseason, though, 2026 recruiting has seen the Bruins raise as high as top 10 in recruiting rankings, dip to just outside or in the top 20, and with two more recruits, this time from the state of Massachusetts, the Bruins have built upon a foundation of what the Big Ten is. Building in the trenches, the offensive line, the defensive line, building with the strength and the big boys up front to make sure they can generate a pass rush, stop the run the football, protect QB1 in years to come. So let's tell you about who these guys are. UCLA has got Carter Gooden and Marcus Almada, teammates from Marion, Massachusetts at Tabor Academy, both defensive linemen, and another pair of out-of-state high school teammates who have decided to come across the country and commit to UCLA. And depending on what model you use, if you're looking at the Rivals on 3 method, if you're looking at the 24/7 sports recruiting rankings, you've got UCLA getting another top recruit. And what do I mean by top recruit? Well, obviously a highly touted kid and a highly recruited opportunity for Carter Gooden, who chooses UCLA. But what I mean is they have a new highest ranked prospect in their class in Carter Gooden under 24/7 sports. If you look more on 3 and Rivals, you will see that he's number 2 in this class in 2026. So that's the talent UCLA is getting. And not only just Gooden, but Marcus Almada, who was crystal balled to UCLA prior, who was committed on Thursday, July, the 10th, when he committed in the middle of the day, Pacific time, before we saw Gooden commit very shortly after, all right? So it's crucial that UCLA maintains these relationships to bring these talented kids in. This is the wrap on Carter Gooden. Here's the good stuff from Andrew Ivins. I talked about him. Somebody who needs to develop, maybe won't necessarily be ready to play year 1 at UCLA, although he's got another high school year to develop. This is somebody who can quickly change course, according to Andrew Ivins, the director of scouting 24/7 sports, can fight off blocks, and is somebody who can project to carry a lot of weight, get a lot stronger, and be somebody who, as a newer player to the game of football, coming from Canada, can still find a way with a lot of flexibility, can be an impact player on Saturdays as somebody who can launch out of his stance and get into the backfield with a quick get-off, all right? So a lot to like, a lot more to project in Carter Gooden, all right? There are some guys who could potentially start right away or compete for a starting spot. And you have what Brian Smith of Locked On the Portal said to me and what we've seen on Locked On UCLA. He's talked about how Micah Champ-Smith out of Florida could be one of those guys, especially as an offensive lineman, to start right away with a room that's been kind of interchangeable in the offensive line last couple of years. That's Micah Champ-Smith, who could be one of those guys. Carter Gooden, we'll see what it looks like in 2026, but this is somebody who still needs to build and grow, and we'll see what he does. Marcus Almada, somebody who's 6'4", 280 pounds, bigger defensive lineman at the moment, has an ability as a defensive tackle, can redirect according to Hudson Standish of 24/7 Sports, good flashes, a good motor, and can run down ball carriers across the line of scrimmage. Those are words from Hudson Standish, a national recruiting analyst, talking about Marcus Almada in an update that was written in just late June of this year. All right. So you've got guys who have good projections. They still got to develop over their last high school season. We'll see how they transition into year one of college football after their senior seasons of high school football. Maybe they'll be early enrollees. We'll figure out how that all rolls. But this is more of a bigger point for UCLA. DeShaun Foster, you look at their top 5 rated recruits that they've got to commit in the class of 26, which is 23 commits right now. All right. It was led by the Pula twins, or Jerron Pula and such. They eventually decommitted and went to Utah. The current list is as follows. Might have a different player on top of the other in terms of 1 and 2, but the point remains the same. You've got Carter Gooden, Johnny Jones, Micah Smith, David Schwarzel, and Anthony Jones. You're like, okay, I'm just throwing a lot of names out there. Those are high school kids. What's the point, Zach? The point is you've got an edge rusher. You've got an offensive tackle, interior offensive lineman, D lineman. Your top 5 guys are attacking the biggest needs for UCLA. And maybe they all pan out, maybe they all don't. All right. But in the end, UCLA is addressing their biggest needs. A little easier to go get receiver talent and find that in the backyard in the Trinity League, go into deep Orange County or maybe locally in Los Angeles and find some solid skill positions that UCLA is building in that room under Burl Tulaire III. It's UCLA going after the bigger guys that can truly transform a football locker room, right? The ability to protect a quarterback. You can have a simple scheme, but if he has no time to throw, regardless of how complex or how simple or how good your offense is, if you have no room to run and no time to throw, you're not going to do anything. Hence Dante Moore, hence Ethan Garbers under both Chip Kelly and Eric Bieniemy. Regardless of the system, no time to throw, limited offensive lines, numbers have dipped the last couple of years for UCLA football on the offensive side. Now, we saw how dominant that 2023 defense was, large in part because how great Laiatu Latu was, how good the defensive line was, and a great linebacker room as well, but they need to restock the talent, all right? Now, we'll see if any of these guys can be half as good as Laiatu Latu was, one of the most dominant football players in his year to 2 years at UCLA on the defensive side of the D-line, hence a first-round pick. Now we'll see what UCLA can do to build for the future, which is building up on the strength and continuing for DeShaun Foster to build relationships locally. And when he's going out of state, going across the country, he's getting them in tandem. Getting guys, 1, 2, not somebody who's like, all right, maybe we might flip. No. Go get 1, 2 guys, make it feel like Los Angeles is their home and build it like a family. Build that culture, which is still important, even though culture is not a 2 to 3 to 4 year thing right now in college football. It's year by year. It's season by season. It's quarter by quarter because UCLA is on the quarter system because things can change, right? You bring in Joey Aguilar in the winter, and then for the spring quarter, like, wait a minute, we need Nico, so you need a whole nother summer regimen to get these guys acclimated to the new offense. So building culture is a lot more segmented compared to a year-by-year basis, class by class. It changes year by year with the portal, commits, decommits, flips, everything. But getting these guys to commit, 1, 2, getting a duo from Vero Beach, from Marion, Massachusetts, to come together, UCLA is doing some big things. And hopefully, while there still might be some question marks this year on the O-line, the D-line, we'll find out how it all plays out with health, with new coaches, how they've already made an impact in recruiting immediately for UCLA in this summer of 2025. We're excited for 2026 and beyond. And hopefully the class of 27 can be just as impactful because UCLA is sitting inside the top 20 nationally. I was excited when they were top 10. They'll hover around top 20, hopefully, to end this year's class prior to any football being played in 2025, which will certainly impact kids' decisions to where they go, even if they've decided to go to UCLA or not. Maybe UCLA rides the wave of momentum and flips a couple of kids to change the ranking. But right now, UCLA is sitting inside the top 20 or right at 20 in multiple recruiting rankings. Can they stay there? Absolutely. But the impact DeShaun Foster has been able to do with this year's class, amazing. Speaking of impact, It's not often you see a one-sport athlete at the college level turn into a two-sport athlete. Well, UCLA on the women's side is going to have absolutely that. We've got more updates on Megan Grant, a basketball player. Talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your personal CFO that gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money, it's more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And think about this. You're like, wait a minute. I want to do all these fun things in the summer. Maybe you want to go to this theme park or that theme park or go see all these summer blockbusters in the movies while having a lot of ice cream. Well, with Monarch Money, you can be like, wait a minute. Is this takeout and subscription model all building up more than what I expected? Well, with Monarch Money, you can actually budget smarter and save more and take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Cruising on here on Locked On UCLA, we're talking UCLA women's basketball, all right? Surprising addition to UCLA's upcoming recruiting class. Why? Because the Bruins didn't have to go that far to go get another player to fill out their roster in this 25 to 26 season, all right? Corey Close has added Megan Grant. What? You mean Megan Grant, who's like the best player in UCLA softball team? Yes, that Megan Grant, who led UCLA to the Women's College World Series. And yet here she is, as Corey Close said, arguably the best player in softball in the United States. To bring in that mentality to come to UCLA, who was a two-sport star at high school, or at least a basketball, softball star. And now she comes in. This is what Megan Grant had to say in the UCLA release just the other day. Being a Bruin is something I take tremendous pride in. Words can't express how grateful I am to now represent both UCLA softball and UCLA women's basketball, two elite and legendary programs. This is Megan Grant in the UCLA release. Basketball is my first love and has always brought out a childlike spirit in me. So putting on this jersey and being a small piece in this historically great program is a dream come true. I can't thank Coach I and Coach Corey enough for allowing me to live out little Meg's dreams. Coach I, Coach Inouye Perez, and Coach Corey is Coach Close. So you've got Megan Grant, who's fourth all-time in UCLA softball slugging, has had 49 home runs, 180 RBIs. I believe was, setting the Big Ten records for home runs, has been to back-to-back Women's College World Series, 2 Pac-12 regular season titles, a Pac-12 tournament championship. Absolute nuttiness for what UCLA will be. Megan Grant will be wearing number 43 for UCLA. So what does this mean? Is this an impactful thing? What does this all mean? Is there a precedent for this? Well, just a couple of years ago, just a season ago, when UCLA went to the Women's College Series, you had Gabriela Jaquez go play for the UCLA softball team. And Gabriela Jaquez, in the reverse order, was a big-time softball player, loved the sport of softball growing up, and then transitioned into basketball and has become a huge contributor for a UCLA team that made it to the Final Four. With Coach Inouye Perez needing a little more pinch runners, they were able to contact UCLA women's basketball. And then next thing you know, with Coach Corey and Coach Inouye Perez figure it out, they had Jaquez go play in the softball team, and she got to go to Oklahoma City. Now Megan Grant is going to go be on the other side. So you have both premier players on their current rosters who have dabbled in other sports during their time at UCLA. That takes a lot of trust. That takes a lot of trust in the player, the coaching staffs on both sides. And I think considering how well it went, at least in their minds, with Jaquez going to softball, you'd Coach Inouye Perez believing, all right, we can trust this enough that our best player, Megan Grant, is going to go play some women's basketball and go play on a team that is loaded with talents. I'm not really sure what to expect from Megan Grant's role. Is it she's earned her spot, but it's a very reserved role, but still the practice, the conditioning, all that's going to bleed into early March will be very, very interesting. Again, the second sentence that this says, it clearly states in this release, Grant will be a two-sport athlete in her senior season, playing both women's basketball and softball. Remember, softball starts earlier than college baseball does. It starts like early February. That's still the heat of Big Ten conference season. All right, sometimes I haven't even seen the schedule. You've seen Hawkeyes do it in the end of the season when women's basketball is over, the basketball season is over, and played in the, what softball is, basically a season-ending spring sport, all right, as it bleeds into the early parts of summer for the most part. Basketball is certainly going to impact the early parts of the softball season. So I wonder what Coach Inoue Perez is going to do for the early parts of her team when you're missing one of the biggest bats that UCLA has potentially for multiple games. I'm not sure how that's going to work. If it's a month off, if she's like, I want to do this, that takes a lot of, internal thinking for Coach Inoue Perez. Thinking, all right, where is this going to go? But in the end, Grant, as always, you always want the player to live out their dreams. And Grant, in her case, is doing that, playing for the UCLA women's basketball team. So you applaud it. I wonder how much this will impact, because you think this is what UCLA has. Kiki Rice, Charlize Ledger-Walker. You're bringing in more talent in the high school ranks from Sienna Betts. You bring in another international recruit. You also bring in Lena Bilic, who we'll talk about right now. Lena Bilic playing for Croatia and her junior national team at the 2025 FIBA U18 Euro basketball division. So playing internationally, which a lot of Bruins have done, even Gianna Neepkins has played for Team USA. You've seen other players play internationally this offseason. For Lena Bilic, who is an incoming freshman, you wonder, all right, UCLA got a lot of playing time from Lena Arnosalo, and you hope she could have developed. Didn't end up being the case. Bilic, though, a 6'3" guard, has averaged 23.5 points per game in this competition, over 5 rebounds, almost 4 assists, 3+ steals, and a block and a half per game in 4 games, while shooting 42% from the floor, 32% from 3, and 82% from the line. So she's been getting buckets. She had a performance of 23 points and 6 rebounds, a steal, and a couple of blocks in her first appearance against England, against Great Britain, technically. Had the game-winning bucket in the final game of the group play. She scored 32 points, was 9 of 10 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 steals. Dominance. Now, we can compare and contrast what international play at this level, at the U18, the junior level, is to D1 college basketball. But Bilic is putting up numbers, all right? And you're not going to have to put that much weight on her shoulders to carry UCLA basketball. They need contributions. They lost London Jones. They lost Janiah Barker. They lost their entire freshman class. So what Bilic is bringing, who is absolutely balling in international play, Sienna Betts, who should hopefully take some of the burden off of her sister Lauren in the post, and then you mix in Gianna Neepkins, arguably one of the most impactful transfers, at least top 2 or 3 in the country, to fill a need for UCLA. With all the other transfers and recruiting UCLA's done in the recent off seasons, it's going to turn UCLA into an immediate title contender, which they've been the last couple of years in 24-25, 23-24, Sweet 16 a year before that, before they were even ready after a WNIT appearance. UCLA's ready to go. All that to say, I wonder what Megan Grant and her role will be, but they have a bright potential star in Lena Bilic to pick it up for UCLA as maybe a reserve guard. I'm not sure where Corey Close is going with this opportunity, but the guard position's gotten much bigger, much taller, right? You had London Jones playing 5'4", sometimes trying to guard Juju Watkins, who will start the year injured after her horrific season-ending injury in the NCAA tournament. The UCLA is going to be the talk of the town in college basketball on the women's side in Los Angeles until Juju gets back. So the Bruins have to race out to a bunch of wins, build up with a bunch of taller guards. All right. They lack some size and some toughness at times. You saw Kiki Rice struggle later in the tournament. What was able to beat them down at the end of the Final Four is UConn's backcourt. Fudd, Paige Beckers, Sarah Strong, when it came down for UCLA. Even though Lauren Betts was putting up buckets, they needed more perimeter play, more guard-oriented play, which is generally what the statement goes, wins in the NCAA tournament. Now UCLA is getting that hopefully with Bilic in a reserve role, maybe a starting role if things surprise here in this upcoming season, with a guard/forward in Megan Grant. I wonder what it's going to look like, how she'll play on both the diamond, on the hardwood, but those are for the coaches to figure it out. What does that scheduling look like? Is UCLA going to backload on midweek games and not big-time tournaments? Or is that going to allow some of these younger players to get more opportunities to play while Grant is away with women's basketball? I wonder what that looks like in this upcoming season for UCLA when we head into the 2026 calendar year. But until then, a lot of stuff to talk about, more UCLA basketball recruiting, more sports-oriented talk. You never know what's NIL going to do. We got all sorts of fun things to talk about and update with this UCLA recruiting offseason. And soon enough, we'll be building into the 2025 football season, all right? Hands up, Bruins fans. Time to talk about it, and talk about it next time. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight, fight, fights. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.